This meeting is for 1 hour and 30 minutes, and we have two speakers today. Izaak will be up first for 30 minutes, followed by Nanette V for 30 minutes. Nanette and Izaak will be speaking on 12-step transformation into emotional sobriety. We're absolutely delighted to have both of you with us today at God's meeting. At this time, please help me give a warm welcome to Izaak M. from Bristol, the United Kingdom. His home group is the Grounded in a Power Greater group. Over to you, Izaak.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andy, and thank you to everyone doing service on the meeting today. It's always so nice seeing such a strong service team on an AA meeting. A real pleasure. Hi, everyone. My name's Izaak. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. Before I get started, I just want to say welcome to anybody who's new, anybody who's back from a relapse, anyone who's struggling, anyone who's counting days. You're so welcome here. It's so good to have you with us, and there is a solution. I crawled into Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's really not hyperbole. I crawled into my first meeting, and as the result of getting involved, getting a home group, doing some service, getting a sponsor, going through this beautiful book, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, working through the 12 steps and developing a relationship and a connection with a God of my understanding, the obsession to drink has been removed today. And for someone like me, that's nothing short of a miracle. It really isn't. And not only that, I live a fulfilling life today. I can experience life in its totality, something I was never able to do. So as a bit of a qualifier, I guess, and just kind of, what my journey, how I'm going to share kind of what my experience has been with emotional sobriety throughout my life up until this point. So, my first real memories as a child and as a young person growing up were of discomfort, uneasiness, and as the result of that, using things. Before I discovered drinking, it was things that I was dependent on for me to feel okay about myself, and that kind of stuff looked like other people, needing people to be around, needing to feed off the energy of other people. Video games was a big one. Getting approval, and then eventually, when I discovered alcohol at the age of 12 years old, it was that. And it essentially turned to solely that for quite a while. So I picked up alcohol when I was 12 years old, and I remember it. I remember very vividly it removing this discomfort and uneasiness that I hadn't really even acknowledged that I had up until that point. And then once that was removed, I was pretty spellbound by that experience, and that just continued and that just progressed. And by the time I was 19, 20 years old, I was a daily drinker. And after 20 years old is where it started becoming, hospital visits, seizures, getting really ill, many, many times trying to stop and never being able to stay stopped, countless times. And what happened, so what I now understand today that I didn't at the time is I suffer from this illness, I suffer from alcoholism. When I put a drink inside of me, I get an insatiable hunger for more that cannot be satisfied. And then once usually something external stops me, I can never stay stopped. I've got this mind that tells me it's going to be different this time, or that won't stop the constant thought of the next drink, or at the time what sounds like a really reasonable voice just kind of breaking down the wall of me saying I'm not going to drink again, until I eventually always lead to the first drink again. I lead to the first one. I kick off this allergy, we call it, just means abnormal physical reaction, and I'm off to the races again. And as that progressed throughout the years, so did this spiritual malady, this disease. And so what happened is every time I tried to quit on my own power, I tried to be abstinent, it would get more and more painful, and I was less and less able to regulate my emotions. And from even before when I started drinking till I was right in the depths of it, I only really kind of had two settings. Either everything was terrible, it was the end of the world, it was the worst thing to ever happen, I can't deal with any of this, or this is the best thing ever, I love everything, nothing could get better than this, There was never any in between. It was always one extreme or another. And I very rarely had any management or control over what that was. That turned into no management or control towards the end of my drinking. And for me, you know, the alcohol and the drinking, it was a way to kind of navigate through that for me. And again, that just became much more the case as time went on. And by the time I was 25 years old, my days just looked like being locked in a mouldy flat in the middle of Bristol where I live. You know, that coming to, and I just remember that feeling. I mean, most of the time I would be withdrawing from alcohol, but just that feeling of being conscious, being awake, having to experience and never, let alone 24 hours, and never 24 minutes, was unbearable. I remember this feeling of despair opening my eyes, having to consider just doing anything, and then I would start drinking, and my only aim was to get unconscious, and that was a cycle for the last stretch of my drinking. And I tried one more period of abstinence. I caused a lot of damage to my body. I ended up with another hospital visit, another seizure. I twisted my spine, and I thought that would be enough. I thought, okay, I can't keep doing this anymore. I keep hurting myself and keep hurting other people. I'm going to quit. Still thinking I had some sort of power over what's going on here. Still thinking that alcohol was the problem, not that there was something much deeper going on. And so I tried to stop. And that 2 to 3 week period of being abstinent with no solution in my life whatsoever was one of the most painful experiences of my entire life. I still very vividly remember just being frozen and paralyzed with fear the entire time. Noises would make me jump. I would have my phone on silent. I couldn't be around other people, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that I try to stop this thing that I know is hurting me and I know is killing me, and I just get worse. And, you know, I came to understand when I started going through the big book and working with a sponsor, going through the steps, you know, this is all part of this illness that I suffer with, and the problem is me. The problem is I suffer from alcoholism, but I didn't know this at the time. And so the day eventually came, as it always does for someone like me, where I drank again. I drank again. I went on yet another big spree. I caused a lot of harm to other people and to myself. And during that period, I was very quickly brought to my knees. I was given this gift of desperation. And in that precise moment where I was given this gift of desperation, two of my oldest friends, they broke into my flat. They found me in the mess I was in. And for the first time in my life, I said, I can't do this. I'm going to drink again. I'm going to die. I'm really scared. I need help. And it's interesting because I remember saying the words, I don't want to be this person anymore. I vividly remember saying that. And very shortly, you know, God heard me when I said that. And I remember saying that from inside of my spirit. It kind of wailed out of me. And within 48 hours, I was in my first AA meeting. And within 72 hours, I had a sponsor. And, you know, very quickly, I was pointed towards the solution. And towards these 12 steps, towards getting connected to a power greater than myself that I call God today. But if anyone is new and that particular word scares you, like you're so welcome. You could use whatever word you like. I use the word God. That's what resonates with me today. If that doesn't resonate with you, that's completely okay. You're more than welcome. And so the 28th of March 2022 is the last time I had a drink inside of me. And on the 29th of March, me and my sponsor started going through the work, started going through the steps. And this is where this change begun. And I started to experience these practices in emotional sobriety as I got carried through this work, as I got guided through this work. So looking at the first step, looking at, you know, this powerlessness and unmanageability, and this powerlessness, you know, definitely 100% over alcohol, but over everything, really, like everything in my life externally, and then this internal unmanageability. And I came to understand that, you know, no matter what I try to do or try not to do on my own power, I'm I'm going to drink again. The time and the place will come where the thought comes into my head that it's going to be okay, and I'm going to go with that thought. I'm going to put the first one in me. I'm going to trigger this allergy, and I'm not going to be able to stop. And, you know, although I'm recovered today from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, I'm under no illusion that I've got power of control over drinking. And what really interested me is looking at this unmanageability, this internal unmanageability, because this I could see in my experience just throughout my entire life, not being able to manage anything, not being able to manage my emotional condition, not being able to manage the way I think, the way I feel. And I conceded that I was without power, I was powerless. And, you know, I was having this conversation with my sponsor, and he said, you know, okay, well, Izaak, if you're without power, if you're completely powerless, you need a power. And he kind of smiled and was like, and that's what the rest of the book is about. That's what the rest of the 12 steps are about. They're getting connected to some power in your life. And that's what we started to do. And in the second step, I was told all I needed was a willingness to believe in something. You know, the wording in that second step, came to believe, kind of suggests over a period of time. And at the time I had a lot of fear around giving myself completely to God, to a higher power. But, you know, I was connecting to a lot of fellows, and I saw you all had something beautiful working in your lives, all these people that were helping me and talking to me, taking my number, then actually coming to meet me, dragging me to meetings, taking me for coffee and talking the solution to me. You know, it was really made clear to me that if I throw myself into this work, I never have to drink again. And I was willing to believe. And in the first step, I made the decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of this power. And at the time, my sponsor kind of just put it as, he broke it down a little bit, and we looked at some examples in the book, and then he just said, you know, if it's comfortable for you to just say you're making a decision to go on with the rest of the steps, do that. And I did, because again, I saw what was on offer through your guys' experiences, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. When I had an awareness of AA before I came in, I thought it would be the Just Try Not to Drink club, just trying not to drink. And for me, that's a really painful experience, because I'm not treating anything. Symptoms, the drinking's just a symptom of what I suffer with. And that wasn't the case. You know, I could see you guys, you had something. You had more than just trying not to drink. You had a peace about you, and a kindness, and a softness, all things I didn't have. And you know, going through steps 4 to 9, this is where I really started to have a change. You know, I started to have this spiritual experience that the book talks about, and the back of the book kind of breaks this down as a change of personality sufficient enough to bring about recovery of alcoholism. And through steps 4 to 9, writing an inventory, sharing that inventory, you know, being aware of these defects, summarize my character, and being willing to turn them over to this power that I'm now developing a relationship with, writing a list of people I've harmed, going out and actually making the amends to those people. If something started to change fundamentally inside of me, that softness and that kindness and that peacefulness I was experiencing through listening to and connecting with you guys, I was starting to experience within myself through starting to put action into this, and I started to develop a relationship with this power. And what started to happen, you know, I started, as my spirit was being treated, I started to really experience and learn that, you know, nothing external to me is going to fix me, or is going to complete and fill this thing that I'm wanting to fill and complete. And you know, that could be drinking, that could be money, could be relationships, power, you know, external to myself. And what I really begun to experience, this connection of this much bigger, much more beautiful, all-encompassing, loving thing deep inside of me. this saying I've heard before, and I use it because it's been my experience from going through this process, is everything started to change, but nothing changed. Because I was the only one who needed changing. So as I was going through steps 4 to 9, I did those steps in the same flat on the same street. I did all of my drinking in and caused all of my harming. But I was protected. And I had some really interesting instances through going through those steps where I'll be presented with quite what would normally be very tempting opportunities to drink, or opportunities to kind of break off and try and do my own thing. But I felt a barrier in between it. And the more I did what you guys were suggesting, the more I threw myself into this beautiful program that just became more and more faded out. And things became less and less this kind of pendulum swinging of everything's amazing and everything's a disaster and everything's painful and everything's and just started to become more quiet and more neutral. My first experiences of God were this silence, just like all-encompassing silence and peacefulness. And so after going through those steps, I was guided into how I continue to work this now in my daily life through 10, 11, and 12. And being shown that the practice in step 10, and step 10, has been a complete game changer for me. And it took me a few months to really understand or start getting an understanding, I should say, around step 10. I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe I needed to grow a lot along that side of things. Maybe I wasn't really listening or seeking that side of the work when I was first taken through it. But what I started to notice is after, while I was going through my amends, and I was writing a nightly review, which is tied into the 11th step. I wasn't really watching as much, and by about 6 months of sobriety, I noticed things were a little bit. It was nothing crazy, but things were a little bit spiky again. Things were a little bit tense, and even just that kind of small change and that small, I noticed I was starting to again get a bit more dependent on these other things around me, outside of me. I'm really sensitive to this stuff, and it gave me a bit of a kick to go and really speak to some people who are much further down this journey than me, and people who practice the 10th step, because I would go to meetings where they would read the beautiful 10th step promises, and I realized I wasn't really experiencing that. And so I kind of got taken back to this part of the work, and I'm just going to read a part of it. So this is on page 84 with the book. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We've entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. And just really kind of soaking in what it was saying there. I need to continue this process of watching, asking, turning. It says continue many times throughout this page, and then the actions surrounding that. So continuing to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, and when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them, discuss them with someone immediately, make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. And I started practicing this with much more vigor. And when I followed those actions, and when, because these things do come up, I'm a human being. It's not if these things come up for me, it's when this stuff comes up. But I do have a choice in what I do and if I pick up the tools or not. And when I do pick up the tools and when I do connect to God and follow these actions, those things don't drive me. My whole life up until that point, all this stuff would be a driver of what I would do or not do. Would all be based on fear and resentment. I'm worried about what's going to happen to me or not what's going to happen to me. To the point where I very rarely did anything apart from drink. And when I do pick up these tools and get connected, my experience has been that stuff gets removed quite quickly for me, but kind of more than that, it's not a driver for what I do, and I can actually experience these things that are like the makeup of my emotional nature. Maybe sometimes I feel some anger just like come up, and I watch as it goes in and through me and doesn't stay inside of me and rot and and decay. And the same with fear and with dishonesty. When so I catch myself sometimes. I might say something that's not completely honest, and when I'm watching, I can pause. It happens where I pause mid sentence and just say, oh, "No, sorry, that wasn't true. Let me correct myself." And it's a really humbling experience. And when I do this thoroughly, when I am in the 10th step thoroughly, I do experience those beautiful 10th step promises where I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it tells me, I'll be placed in the position of neutrality, safe and protected. I'll cease fighting anything and anyone, even alcohol. And my experience in life, that I would always be fighting. There'd always be this internal struggle going on. I remember my mother, she would if we were walking around together, she would have to push my shoulders down because I'd been walking around so tense all the time. And today I can breathe and I can feel my shoulders lower. It's so beautiful. And then in the 11th step, again, for me, this really closely ties into the 10th step and my development in emotional sobriety. The longer I've been seeking a relationship and connection with this power, which I was encouraged to do even before I got to the 11th step by my sponsor. He got me to start getting used to the practices of getting quiet, speaking and listening, prayer, meditation, which at first felt a little bit different to do. It wasn't completely alien to me. I as soon as I was given direction to do that, I suddenly had these memories flood in of when my grandmother would teach me how to pray when I was a little kid, and I hadn't thought about that in a very long time. And so I kind of had a reflect on what to do there. And when I got to this part in the work where I'm now practicing this every day, I was able to build something really beautiful, and I continue to really try and seek here. I try different practices. I read different literature. I try and speak to people who follow specific paths and just talk about what they do. Really try and be a sponge around the 11th step. And again, it means when these things come up that before I've had this experience would drive what I do or would be, completely kind of change my makeup and cause, and I would soak them in and act out. I can pause today. I find so much beauty in the pause, and the longer I do this, the more and more comfortable I get just being. Don't have to have these stimuli around me for me to divert attention to how I'm feeling or how I'm being, so I can be okay. I can just be, and I can just breathe, even if there is maybe a little bit of discomfort for whatever reason. I can just be with that, and I'm so grateful for that. So grateful for that. I'm just going to echo again. I came into AA because I couldn't stop drinking and I was going to die. I've been given so much more in that, in bounds. And what's so beautiful about developing a relationship with God, with power, how it was put to me is me, Izaak, I'm a very finite human being, but I have the opportunity to really plug into something that's infinite, and whatever resonates there for you: infinite love, infinite power, infinite peace. And because this thing is within me, no matter what I'm doing or where I am, I'm in a position where I can connect to that. It's always there. It's always there. And the more I lean into that rather than this other stuff outside of me, I experience that no matter what, everything's okay. I've had waves of this, no matter what, everything's okay. Not everything's going to be okay. Everything is. It's okay. It's not an experience I knew was possible in my life. And just to end it on the 12th step. And so, yeah, being able to work with others, being able to learn from the people that I work with, going through these beautiful steps, watching them have their own experience, watching them grow as they practice emotional sobriety is just profound. It really is. And I was encouraged to do this from the moment we went through the first 164 pages. I was sent out there to find people to work with, and it's what I've done. But those first instances, and it was put to me when I first came in, no matter how far in I am, I'm in a position where I can be helpful to another alcoholic. If I'm 2 weeks in, I can try and be helpful to someone who's a week in. If I'm a week in, I can help someone who's 2 days in. If I'm 1 day in, there's someone who's not in the rooms yet, I can try and be helpful to. And that was what was being practiced to me when I first came in, by these people who were really new in the rooms, a few days in, a few weeks in. And they were practicing, again, these things that I did not have the capacity to do or feel, this kindness and acceptance. I remember this person who was about a week in when I came to my first meeting. He looked me in the eyes, gave me a hug and said, "Welcome home." And I felt that, he meant what he was saying. And it was that attraction of what is on offer if I throw myself into this beautiful program and get connected to a power that kept me here, and seeing that I don't have to be this person that I am when I came in, because I'm not. I'm a completely different person today. I really am, and I mean that in the best possible way. Like I said, I remember shouting out the words when I got brought to my knees, "I don't want to be this person anymore," and that prayer was answered. It was completely answered. I'm not that person who was curled up in that room, withdrawing off alcohol, crying and just not wanting to exist anymore. I experience gratitude and love for the life that I do have today. And I've got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to end it on this. This practice of emotional sobriety, through continuing to work these steps and explore and be teachable, is that for me, it's a practice. And I've found it's definitely been like a learning experience, a learning curve. But what I found so beautiful about it is it's the same as this relationship I'm seeking with God. If I continue to seek this and just continue to try and keep an open mind and try to keep humble, there's so much available. There's so much available. So listen, if anyone is new or anyone is struggling, again, you're so welcome with us. Thank you for joining us today, and there is a solution. If you were anything like me and you found that experience, just trying not to drink, so difficult and painful, there's so much more to what's on offer here than that. If you work through the 12 steps as outlined in this beautiful book and get connected to some power, the obsession to drink will be removed. That's what happens. But there's also so much more on offer here. There's a life of fulfillment and contentment and peace available. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, everyone.